Hi guys, welcome back to Elephants in the Room. My name is Nicole and I am your host. I hope you guys had a good week. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. I've been really trying to have not only good episodes, but just talk about things that really matter. And also, I have been listening to your guys' comments and DMs and all these different things, trying to just find the topics that matter the most. So today we are going to be talking about something that is really hard, really hard. And I always preface with this, but I am not an expert. I'm not a psychologist, a therapist. I am simply just a girl who has been through some challenging things in her life and am just here to give you like big sister advice and tell you from my past experiences and what I've been through, what I've learned, and try to save you some time and some pain and just give you encouragement. So that's what my goal is today. So today we are going to be talking about starting over after a breakup, rebuilding your life, rebuilding your self-esteem, and the things that I learned to do after a breakup to rebuild your life, and the things I learned to not do. So obviously you guys know I've been through multiple breakups in my life, and over the course of all of those, I have learned what I should do and what I shouldn't do. So obviously all of this is my opinion based on my experiences, but these are some things that I wish I knew when I went through my breakup and wish that I did and or didn't do. And also just going to offer some encouragement and try to shed some light on just the harsh reality about breakups, because they're really hard. Super hard. So without further ado, shall we jump in to all of this? First, I have to open my water, frick. So first, let's just talk about the elephant in the room. When you go through a breakup, typically you are sad, lost, hopeless, and if you were in a toxic and or unhealthy relationship, you might have lost yourself along the way and you feel like you have nothing now and you don't even know who you are. Going through a breakup, I just feel like is one of the most life-altering things. Obviously, I've gone through breakups to all different levels. In relationships, I've gone through breakups, but to an even bigger level, I went through a divorce, which is like life-shattering and life-changing. But ultimately, romantic heartbreak is so painful. It is one of the most painful experiences that I feel like we experience as humans. The most painful emotion, the most painful thing. It's just, it can feel so personal. And so I think oftentimes at the end of a relationship, most people in relationships, we give a lot to relationships. We give a lot of ourselves. And sometimes we give too much. And part of a relationship is building a life together, especially when you're married or in like a committed, serious relationship. But whatever level your relationship was at, you gave parts of yourself, emotionally, physically, mentally. Like you gave time, you invested time, emotional energy, love, space. You let this person into your heart, to the deepest parts of yourselves, expose parts of yourself that probably no one knows, told them things about you that no one knows. Like relationships are so intense for so many reasons, and they require so much intensity. So oftentimes when a relationship ends after we pour everything into them, into that person, into making it work, into hoping that it will work, and it ends, whatever reason it may be, it can feel like you're walking away with nothing. It can feel like you literally drained your bank account, metaphorically. You got no money in the bank. You gave it all. You bet it all. You put it all on that table because you had full faith that it would work out. Or at least you hoped that. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I bet all this money on this table and I didn't save any money for myself. I didn't reserve anything for me. And again, that's like a metaphor. What I'm trying to say is that it's normal to want to give and pour so much of yourself into romantic relationships. It's natural. It's a natural desire that we all have. And in a perfect world, the reason we do that is because love in its purest form is so beautiful, and God intends for two people to come together, and when they become married, become one, and just absolutely blossom into a beautiful couple. Not that you're not your own individual people, but love is meant to be such a perfect, safe thing. I feel like in God's eyes, like the image of marriage. Now, we live in a sinful world, and not only that, but we also go through stages in our life. So when we're young, it's like when we're dating in high school and all these different things, it's like obviously we don't usually end up with those people, or in middle school. But love is a risk. At the end of the day, love is a risk. Romantic relationships are a risk, but they're worth risking for because they're so beautiful, and we all deeply desire to be loved, and we want to love. Now, with that being said, there's so many things that goes into the dynamics of all of our relationships based on so many things: the timing, the person, your background, your dating history, your trauma, what you've been through as a child. Like, there's so many things that go into who we choose as partners, who we look for in partners, why we seek out relationships, where those intentions come from. Like, there's so much to uncover. And so it's not black and white. And even this episode and the things I talk about, like, every situation is so unique. But overall, I do feel pretty strongly about a lot of the things that I'm about to say. But I just want to, before we start talking about how to rebuild your life after a breakup and what to do and what not to do, I just want to validate you where you are right now. If you're listening to this episode and you just went through heartbreak, whether it was in high school, in middle school, or maybe a marriage that, fell apart and you ended up getting divorced, whether you're 20 or you're 60, whoever you are, whoever is listening to this and who feels inclined to continue to listen because they have experienced and or are experiencing the absolutely devastating pain of heartbreak. I just want to validate you and encourage you that no matter the way it ended, whether it was you ending it or them ending it, and no matter what your situation is and what it looks like, because truly the only two people who know are you and that person, I just want to validate you that every emotion that you're experiencing in this moment is so valid. And healing from heartbreak is so messy, and it's so not linear. And there are a lot of parts of the grieving process, because you truly are grieving not only that person, but the relationship, and even potentially the person that you were in the relationship. There's so many steps to grieving, and I think we can get so wrapped up in like thinking it needs to be a certain way, or thinking that if we feel a certain emotion or we're feeling a certain way that there's something wrong with us. And I just want to say, if you feel crazy, if you feel like you're the only person that's experiencing these insane emotions and insane amount of pain, you're not alone. Heartbreak is like life-shattering and life-altering. And if you feel like you lost yourself, and if you feel like you are literally starting from scratch, I want this episode to be an encouragement to you. And I want you to know that I never, ever thought that after I had to restart, I would be where I am now. And it was a journey to get here. but I would not take it back for the world, because heartbreak is one of the biggest blessings in life. And I know that may sound so backwards to you right now, because we naturally want to avoid pain. But I swear to you, heartbreak, it is one of the biggest ways to grow and to start to truly love yourself. When you hit rock bottom, the most beautiful part about hitting rock bottom and the most beautiful part about starting from scratch after a breakup is that anything is possible. You get to rebuild your life, your identity, your self-esteem, your self-value, your self-worth, all from scratch. You literally get to start from ground zero, and you get to put in stable footing, a stable foundation, and build upon it and build upon it and build upon it. So if maybe you feel like you didn't have a stable foundation going into the relationship, whether that was the way you loved yourself or the reasons you went into the relationship, if you feel like there was trauma that tied into the relationship, whatever it is, I just want to encourage you that this breakup means a fresh start, to get down to those roots, dig them up, and rebuild the right healthy roots. Because there's usually a lot of roots in these relationships that we choose, especially if they're toxic and unhealthy. So let's start by talking about some of the hard truths about relationships. And these are hard to hear, but if I've learned anything through what I went through, I've learned these things. And let me just tell you, it's not easy to hear these things, but even bigger than that, it's not easy to really, really accept them, and it takes time, and sometimes it takes going through it. So if you feel like you're not receptive to some of these things, that's okay. It's just my opinion, but this is some hard truths about relationships. Before we get into this, I just want to say, I think a hard part of a breakup is that when we are in that place of hopelessness, depression, anxiety, confusion, and we're sitting in the what if phase and we're grieving the relationship, it's so easy to just be like, why can't this work? Why can't this work? I want this to work. And we just are in denial. We're in denial, and it's so hard. And I think a natural part of breaking up with someone is you are constantly analyzing what you lost. And so you are subconsciously only focusing on the good parts of the relationship and ignoring the bad. And you're like so sad, and you're grieving the good parts, and you're grieving the good things in the relationship and the good parts of the person. But you're broken up for a reason. It didn't work out for a reason. Whether it was you guys together, or whether it wasn't the right fit, or maybe it was them, or maybe they weren't treating you right, or they broke your heart and they abandoned you and left you. You don't want to be with someone like that. You don't want a love with someone that is willing to lose you. You don't want to be with someone that isn't scared to lose you, you know? Anyways, let's talk about some hard truths. This is not everyone, but some of you for sure. You might be in love with their potential and not with them, not with the reality of who they are. Oftentimes when we start to feel rejection in a relationship, or just when we don't have the knowledge or the wisdom about relationships, knowing that there's actually a lot of fish in the sea, there's a lot of people out there that would love us, or we come from trauma, we settle for so much less than we deserve. And when we start to feel rejected in a relationship, we will do anything and everything to make that relationship work, because we get so married to the idea of who that person showed us they were in the beginning, or who that person claimed they were or who we thought that person was, when in reality we are overlooking so many red flags and we are overlooking who they are. Like, we make this version of who these people are in our heads. And then especially when we go through breakups, we idolize these people. We put them up on a pedestal as if we're losing this great thing. When oftentimes in reality, we were fighting and begging for them to love us. We were fighting and begging for them to stay. We were fighting and begging for them to be what we needed, and they weren't. And that's why you're broken up. Whether they broke up with you or you broke up with them or it just didn't work out, it didn't work out for a reason. And so it's like, when you really look at your relationship, you really, really look at it. Did you love who that person was and how they treated you and how healthy and good that relationship was? Were your needs being met? Or did you love the idea of who you thought they would become? Did you love the idea of just being in a relationship? Did you love the idea of being enough to be chosen? And you cared more about not being rejected and not being abandoned than being with someone who is actually a good fit for you? I know it's hard, but it's just so easy to see the best in people. And I think inherently we all want to do that. We all want to see the best in people. But they always say this, but people show you who they are the first time. Don't make them show you again. That's not to say that people don't make mistakes. And that is not to say that any relationship is going to be perfect. But people show you who they are in relationships. And it's crazy because I look back on my relationship, one of them, and I'm like, rose-colored glasses, hello? Rose-colored glasses, hello? Like, how did I not see the red flags? Like, what? Like, I was so traumatized and blindsided and betrayed, and rightfully so. I should have been in my relationship. But at the same time, I look back at the beginning of that relationship before we broke up, and I'm like, wait, you kind of did show me some stuff in the beginning. I was just in love with who I thought you were, who you said you were, who you kind of alluded to be, who you showed me to be. But a lot of your actions always didn't line up, and there was always stuff. I don't know. It's just like, I'm like, oh, dang, like, it is so easy to ignore the red flags and not live in reality when it comes to love. We love to ignore the red flags. And we love to minimize bad things about people. Again, because I think inherently we want to believe the best in people, and no one's perfect. But when you're going through a breakup, just know you may be more in love with the idea of who you wanted that person to be or who you thought they were going to be. Were you really in love and would choose to be with someone who they actually were? Like, when you're looking at who they actually are, their actions. And I know it's more complex than that. I get it. People are so complicated and people have wounds and trauma, and oftentimes we can see that and we have empathy for that. And so we want to just give them the benefit of the doubt, and we see who we think they could be and we believe that they can be it, but you can't want them to be that more than they want to be that. There's nothing wrong with being someone who is working through issues in their own life or who isn't perfect, because yeah, we all have potential. But if you want them to be the version of yourself you've made up in your head more than they want to be, you're never gonna have that. And why would you even be with them anyways? That's not fair to either of you. It's so hard, but it's like you really have to look at it. Were you more in love with their potential than you were with them? or in love with the idea of who you thought they were. And this ties into my next point, another hard truth about relationships. The relationship wasn't perfect. When we are losing something, we love to grasp onto the good parts and idolize and fantasize about what it could have been. Well, what if? But what if this? But what if that? But what if I did this different? But what if he did this different? But what if we could have made it work? But what if this? But what if? No what ifs. Like, really look at the reality of your relationship. Like, no relationship is perfect, but I can almost guarantee you whoever's listening to this on the other end can look at their relationship and write down 5 bad things about their relationship and write down maybe 5 bad ways that they were treated in that relationship, or 5 qualities that they want in a future husband and or spouse or wife or partner that person didn't have. But when we're so emotionally invested in people, we can ignore what was actually bad. And also when we're losing, when we're grieving, because we're grieving it and it's like, oh, we want to reflect on all the good. Oh, but what about this? But what about the way they loved me? But what about the way they did this? But it's like, okay, but also what about the way that they didn't? What about the way that they hurt you? What about the way that they abandoned you? What about the way that they betrayed you? What about the way that they, whatever it is, what about the way? You know, it's like just as much as you put so much emphasis on what you're losing and the good parts of the relationship, I literally want you to sit down and write down the bad parts and write down the things that you didn't like about the relationship and write down the qualities and or the characteristics that you didn't like and or that you want in a future relationship and they didn't have. And that doesn't make them a bad person. It just makes them not your person. Not the person that you want to choose to spend your life with. Because we should choose who we want to spend our life with carefully. So that's another hard truth. The next one, which shout out to all my traumatized people out there who are watching this, because I know a lot of you have trauma, love you, but you may have been in a trauma bond. That might be why it's so hard to let go of that person. You think it's because they're your soulmate and because you love them so deeply and because you'll never find anyone else like them. But really it's because you're addicted to the cycle of abuse that they put you in. That unhealthy dynamic and toxic relationship put you in. And it's okay to accept that your relationship was toxic. And it's hard because it can feel like, but no, I did everything right. I love them. I tried so hard. I wasn't perfect, but I fought and I tried for it to be good and I tried for it to be pure. Let me tell you something. The way that you tried to love someone can be good and your love can be pure without that relationship being good. Sometimes the only good part about the relationship was you. Sometimes the only good part about the relationship was the love that you were giving to it. And that doesn't have to make the other person bad, a bad person. It just means you shouldn't be with them. You don't want to be with them. At that stage in their life, if they haven't healed from certain traumas or certain wounds, or neither of you have healed and you both have unhealthy dynamics and traumas that create this cycle of abuse, that create this unhealthiness, you don't want it anyways. Now, there is a difference between a relationship that has unhealthiness in it and a toxic, abusive relationship. There's a difference. But I just want you to really look at if you feel like, oh, I just can't lose this person. I don't know what to do. I'll never love anyone like them. And you physically feel sick not being with them. You may be trauma bonded to them. The emotional highs and lows create this trauma bond that makes it harder to break free. I remember when I was going through heartbreak, I physically felt like part of me was dying. Like I felt like it was so messed up in my head because I feel like part of healing and coming out of a toxic relationship and breaking free from that cycle of abuse is that you actually start to identify, why is it that the thing that's hurting me or the person that's hurting me is the only thing that can make me feel better? If the person who is hurting you and the thing that is hurting you is the only thing that makes you feel better, don't you think that's a little screwed up? Right? You may have to look at that and be like, why is that? There may be something I need to look at deeper and heal from. Because we shouldn't need a hit of love from the person who is hurting us, especially if they're being emotionally or physically or mentally abusive. That's not good. Now, again, there's a difference between toxic and abusive relationships and relationships that have unhealthiness in them. No relationship is perfect. So I don't want you throwing out terms and throwing out names on people and doing all these things. Like, there are levels to all of this. So there is a difference. And a lot of this advice, it applies to both in different ways. But you may have been trauma bonded to them. Oftentimes coming out of a relationship that had gaslighting and emotional manipulation leads to such an anxiety. It makes it so hard to trust your reality because you almost feel like you're gaslighting yourself. And that's one of the side effects of gaslighting, is that, like, literally after you've been gaslit, like, you feel good in the moment and you're like, okay, like, I'm fine. And then, like, you kind of wake up and come back to reality and you're like, oh my gosh, no, that, like, wasn't okay. And so when you're healing from a relationship and kind of coming out of a breakup that the relationship had, you know, you were being gaslit or emotionally abused, it's like you're questioning your own reality when you're trying to heal. It's like you're trying to heal, but you don't even know what happened. And you're like, wait, what even happened? Like, it's the worst. I remember feeling like, like my brain felt like it was broken. And a lot of bad things, I didn't actually remember until months and months out, because I was gaslit. And my brain, I couldn't even trust my own thought after being gaslit. So it's like, you may feel like it's hard to trust your reality right now, and you may not even really know what's going on. But if you feel that way, it's probably a good thing you're out of the relationship and that both of you guys can heal. The next hard truth about relationships is that the breakup may hurt worse than usual if you have an abandonment wound. Recognizing this can help you separate past trauma from the present pain. So obviously, I think this is common sense, but let's say you get a cut and you put a Band-Aid over it, but it hasn't fully healed yet. And then someone cuts you again over the Band-Aid, and it's like the wound was still healing. So now it's like even more, wounded. And it hurts extra because that area was already in pain and that area was already wounded. So you can look at it the same way that you look at relationships. And if you've been neglected, rejected, abandoned, whatever it is in your past from your parents or your family or even a past relationship, you may be really having to feel that past pain and the present pain because you actually haven't healed from that. And that for sure happened to me. And that is true. It's not to say that it wasn't still traumatic and painful and terrible what I went through, but I was also experiencing a deeper wound being opened back up that hadn't been healed from my childhood. So that is a hard truth. And the next one that's so hard but so true is I really just feel like closure is a myth. Like, we think that getting closure and we think that getting an explanation as to why someone didn't choose us, as to why someone didn't want us, as to why something didn't work out will make us feel better, when in reality, it never does. and it isn't actually what heals you. And closure comes from you moving on with your life and realizing that no matter what the reason was, no matter what the source was, no matter what, nothing was going to make it feel better. You had to experience the pain. You had to go through it. You had to accept it. And at the end of the day, rejection and breakups and heartbreak, they're just painful, no matter the reason. When a relationship doesn't work out, whatever the reason be, it's just painful. Closure isn't necessarily going to make you feel better. Now, I do feel like closure comes with time and just acceptance of the situation. And that's not to say that you shouldn't reach out and or say how you feel or ask questions. I'm not saying that you can't seek out closure, but I just want to say that it doesn't always make you feel better. Especially when you're expecting and or hoping for something from them. Now, if you're just wanting to share how you feel and you're just wanting to get your final thoughts out, I think totally do that. I always encourage my friends, literally anyone who ever goes through a breakup, I'm like, write a letter to them. I feel like that's literally the best way, because when you're emotionally involved and invested with someone, it's really hard to share how you feel, especially at a time of like a breakup or a fight or whatever it may be. And so like actually being able to gather your thoughts and write them down, you can do it without fear. And you don't even ever have to give it to them or read it to them or tell them about it. But I think it is really powerful to write out how you really feel, uncut, unscripted, just very honest and raw. And I think there is power in sharing that. But like expecting to get an answer from said person as to why they didn't do and or not do whatever you wanted them to do and the relationship didn't work out the way that it wanted, don't wait on it. Just don't wait on it. It doesn't necessarily heal you. Like, closure is nice, but I don't know. I just think it's kind of a myth that like closure is like so needed to move on from a relationship. Like closure can happen just from you accepting and moving on yourself. You may never get an answer, and like that's okay. That's part of acceptance, is just accepting it. And also I think in time, you will always see the truth. In the moment, like we want an answer because we like to internalize everything and make everything about us, in the sense of like us not being enough or whatever it may be when a relationship doesn't work out. But oftentimes in time, you can see why a relationship didn't work. So that's some of those hard truths about relationship. Okay, now let's get into the bread and butter of this episode, which is, where do we start when we want to rebuild our lives? When we feel like we're starting from ground zero after a breakup. You lost them, you lost a relationship, you lost friends, you had to move, whatever it may be. You feel like you're losing so many parts of yourself, so many similar shared interests, hobbies, music. There's so many things that we invest and give into a relationship that when we step away from them and we try to start healing, we have to let go of a lot of those things, and it can just feel like we have nothing. And especially when we lose ourselves in relationships. So where do we start? How do we start rebuilding after a relationship? I feel like the first and most important step of rebuilding your life and your sense of self and your self-esteem after a relationship is identifying who you are. It starts with identity. And you have to start defining who you are outside of the relationship. Oftentimes we make so much of our identity the relationship and who we are in the relationship, but we have to start to identify who we are outside of who we were within the relationship, and also that person's perception of us. When we love someone, obviously we're very moved by the way that they feel, and we oftentimes really try to be like what they want to be. So starting with identity is so important. So for me, when I went through heartbreak and I felt like I had hit my rock bottom, And I felt like I was starting from scratch. And I was so bitter and I was so angry because I felt like I gave so much to the relationship, so much of myself. And I felt like they got to keep all the good parts and I had to lose everything to heal. And I had such a low self-esteem, didn't know who I was anymore, didn't even know who I was to begin with, and was just lost. I mean, I was so young when I went through that divorce. So I started with trying to identify, who am I? Because at the time I felt like, when I went through heartbreak, I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable, I'm unchoosable, I'm not enough. So I really had to take a step back and say, who am I? Who is Nicole? And that was a beautiful part of my healing journey, is that is when I gave my life to Christ and I started to identify myself as who God says I am first. And that was so important because it's really easy to feel like we are what people think we are, and we are only valuable based on who and what and how we are chosen and or valued by others. But I had to see that my identity first started in Christ and who he said I was, and also that Christ loved me, Jesus loved me, and that had to be enough. And I had to learn to love me, which I didn't at the time, but that had to be enough. Self-worth comes from within, not from being chosen by someone. I think we are very flattered when we are chosen by someone and when someone values us in life, whether it's a friend or in a relationship. And it's often easy to put our worth and our value into that, into like how valuable we are in the dating world or to a significant other or to a partner. But the problem with that is that can be crushed so easily when someone decides to not value you or to not choose you. And it can really shake your sense of self and your sense of self-worth. So remembering that your worth does not come from other people's opinions, approval of you, or if they choose or desire or value you or whatever it may be. And I think part of identifying who you are is just identify your core values. Who are you at your core? What do you believe in? Who is your character? Are you a kind person? Are you a nice person? Are you an honest person? Do you have integrity? Who are you? Who are you at your core? Who were you before you were in that relationship? Who do you want to be? Like, it starts with, who am I? What's my identity? Because we act off of that. You know, it's like we have to identify who we are and who we want to be. And that is the beginning, I feel like, of rebuilding your life after a breakup. Because if you don't have identity, what do you have? So it's like that is the keystone, I feel like, of rebuilding your life after a breakup. So once you start to establish your identity, and whatever that is, whatever means that is spiritually for you, or maybe you're not a spiritual person, maybe you don't believe in God, whatever it is for you, identify, who are you? Who do you want to be? What defines your identity? And that is the first step. And for me, it was Jesus. And it was that he loved me first. And it was that he says I'm all these things. And it's my morals, it's my values, it's what I believe in, who I want to be as a person, my character. That's where the identity starts. And that's where I feel like the self-love journey can begin. Now, I want to talk about what to do after a breakup and what not to do, okay? And this is all part of building self-esteem, self-worth, healing, getting through, rebuilding, and restructuring your life. I want to talk about some of the things that you should do and that you should not do. And this is based on my experience. I'm no expert, but I am just going to tell you guys. The first thing, do not stay in contact when you break up. I used to fight this so hard, but I truly stand by the fact that I do not believe, no matter what your relationship looked like, you can sit here and tell me, well, my relationship ended amicably. My relationship, it doesn't hurt us to still be in each other's lives. It helps us, whatever you believe in. I honestly just stand by the fact that even if it's just temporarily, you have to go no contact. If you are in love with that person, if you love that person, I really don't think there's a way to heal and actually rebuild your life separate from them without cutting off communication. Even if it's just temporary, which I think it should probably be forever, especially if you were in an unhealthy or toxic relationship. Not to say that you can't ever talk to them ever again in your life, but when you heal, you'll actually realize that you don't want to. You don't want them in your life anymore. That doesn't mean you have to hate them. It just can mean that you know that it's not good for them to be in your life and vice versa. And you can let them go because you know you have bigger and better things for you and they for themselves as well. You're on different journeys. But you've got to go no contact. You've got to go no contact. Like, I tried to do the whole not go no contact thing, and it only held me back. It only led me back into the chains of grieving the relationship and wanting the relationship and wrestling with the what ifs. Like, you need separation from that person to heal and to move on and to rebuild your life after a breakup. You need to go no contact. That is my biggest piece of advice. Just do it. Even if you ended on good terms, even if nothing crazy bad happened, just go no contact. Even if it's just for a little bit, allow yourself the space and the time to heal before you reopen that door. Not that I think you should ever reopen the door, potentially. Depends on your relationship. But I think initially you need to go no contact. You need to. And part of that is social media. Social media. This, again, is another one of my hot takes, but I really, really stand by this as well. Just block them. Even if it's just temporarily. The whole point of going no contact is that you need complete removal from them in your life. Truly, oftentimes, it's like a drug we're addicted to when we're going through a breakup and we're really trying to rebuild and move on and heal. It's this drug, and until it's out of the room and it's gone, you're not gonna get over it. You're not gonna recover. It's like going and stalking your ex's social media is not going to do anything for you but set you back. You don't need to know what they're doing. They don't need to know what you're doing. And I think people have it twisted because they're like, oh, I don't need to block someone. I don't need to block them. I can just not look at their stuff or unfollow them. But I think what's so beautiful about blocking is that, number one, it's not permanent. You can always unblock someone. And number two, it's just like no contact. It's complete removal of access to you and to them. And that's what you need to heal. You need to start a new life. I got caught up in the idea that I could hold on to old parts of that life and parts of the relationship. And I was so in fear of losing everything that I felt like I had to hold on to things. And until I let everything go and I removed everything, I wasn't able to really heal and rebuild. And that goes into mutual friends and family. Let's say you're close to their family. Let's say you have mutual friends. You built a life together, right? You may even live in the same place as them still and go to the same gym. Go to a different gym. Find a different gym. Find new friends. That's not to say that you can't ever have relationships with the people that you guys coexisted with when you were together. But temporarily, for you to heal, you need removal. You need time. You need space. Something that I did that was great, looking back, is I muted all of our mutual friends and his family on social media. Because I needed that. I needed that to heal. I needed that to not be constantly looking into that old life and being like, oh, but what if? Oh, but this hurts. Oh, but what is this person doing? No. Cut it off. You need to rebuild. You need to focus on you. and developing new relationships. And again, that's not to say that in due time, eventually you can't have relationships with people that you coexisted with, whether that's family or mutual friends or friends that you built together. But initially, I really think it's good to limit your interactions with those people, because it's just so hard to start something new when you're stuck in the old. So that is something that I really, really encourage you to do if you're going through a breakup. It may feel like, oh, but this is my friend too. But this is the music. This is our music that we listen to. But this is my social media. I don't want to have to block them. I don't want to be dramatic. Like, whatever. Any reasoning as to why you feel like you need to not go no contact and start absolutely fresh, I want you to wash it down the drain, because you need to start fresh. You need complete removal temporarily till you can heal, till you can get back on your feet, till you can start to rebuild and reintroduce yourself to who you even are, to be able to go through those things. Because when you come back from all of it and you're a more healed and healthier version, you then get to decide what parts of that old life or those old relationships you want to let back in. Not from an emotional place. Because when we go through breakups, we're in such an emotional place. And so it's like we can't make logical decisions that are best for us. And we want to hold on to whatever we can hold on to, but we got to let it go. Like, the best thing you can do is let go. So just go no contact in every way, shape, and form, just until you can get yourself on stable grounding and that you can heal. And then you can decide what you actually want to be a part of, who you actually want in your life. That's so important. So, so important. The next thing is embrace loneliness for growth. I think that when we come out of relationships, it can feel so isolating, because we go from being with someone all the time to not having anyone at all, to not having anyone to really, really be there for us the same way that they were there for us. And yeah, there's just a lot of loneliness and a lot of isolation that we go through when we go through breakups. And it's uncomfortable to be lonely. It's uncomfortable to be isolated. And that's not to say that you shouldn't surround yourself with people, but I'm just saying, don't be scared of the loneliness. Don't be scared of doing things alone. Don't be scared of being alone, because it actually provides such a place for growth. I look back on that time in my life, on really all the times in my life, but specifically after that heartbreak, that I had to be alone. And being alone is hard, but being alone is one of the biggest pillars of, I feel like, not only relying on yourself, but starting to love yourself again. Being alone and getting comfortable in your own presence with just you, and learning to have your own presence be enough for you, is really, really empowering. And it's really, really pivotal to, I feel like, your identity and your self-esteem, being able to rely on yourself, and for me, rely on Jesus, and get comfortable with just the presence of Jesus and just the presence of myself. That was such a beautiful time for me, even though it was so challenging. Looking back, I'm so thankful that I had that time. Now I'm in such a happy relationship with someone that I love so deeply. And I'm so thankful that before I got into this relationship, and before I get married to him and we have kids and we're together forever, that I had that time alone for myself to grow into who I want to be, and for me to just create a sense of self-trust and a sense of self-esteem, to know that actually, you know what, Nicole, you can do this on your own. You actually are okay on your own. You actually do love yourself on your own. You don't need someone. And for that to happen, I feel like you really do have to lean into that loneliness. Just get comfortable with it. It's your time to reconnect with yourself, and it's your time to focus on creating a better life for yourself and creating a new life for yourself. Which is the next thing. Do focus on yourself. That is one of the most beautiful things about a breakup, is that you had all this love and energy and time that you were giving and pouring to someone else. And now you get to take that and you get to pour it into you, onto you, which can feel uncomfortable and hard to do because we want to love others so deeply. But I challenge you to start trying to love yourself the way that you were loving that person, and to give to yourself the way that you were giving to that person. I always joke and I'm like, yeah, after, my heartbreak, I dated myself. And it's like, it's really cringy and funny to say, but it's like, I literally took the same principles that I did in a relationship and I turned them on me. What do you do in a relationship? You listen, you spend quality time, words of affirmation, you give them gifts, you do acts of service. So all the things that you would do to a significant other in a relationship, like when you actually start doing that to yourself, it's so good. When you speak highly of yourself, when you speak love to yourself, when you encourage yourself, give yourself grace, forgiveness, patience, and you pour into your hobbies, your passions, your goals, the things that you like to do. You invest your time and your emotional energy into healing and to working on yourself. It's like such a beautiful thing. It's like you get to have all that time that you were spending on someone else and you get to pour it into you, which will make you a better partner in the future. It will make you more stable. It will just make your life better. It's such an opportunity for growth. So focus on yourself. Don't seek validation from others or rush into a new relationship. Enjoy the time that you get to have just you. It's really special and it's really important. The next thing is, do allow yourself to have joy during grief. This is one of my biggest regrets about that hardest season of my life when I went through that heartbreak, was that I felt like I couldn't be two things. I couldn't be sad and happy at the same time. So I just inherently had to be sad because everything that I was going through, I was so sad and I was so hopeless and just mad and bitter and all these different things. And because I felt all those things, I thought I couldn't be happy. So I said no to so many things that I should have said yes to because I didn't feel 100%. Like, you're not always going to feel 100% emotionally available or emotionally capable. And you may be sad, but that doesn't mean that you can't do fun things. That doesn't mean that you can't have fun. And that doesn't mean that you can't have small moments of joy. So what I would do is when I had moments of joy, I would push them away and I'd be like, oh no, I can't. I'm sad. I'm sad though. I can't. And I would hold myself back from experiencing joy because I just wanted to mope in my sadness and I wanted to be sad. And those little slivers and flickers of joy, little flickers of joy that come, that's like your light coming back. And all those little flickers, they'll keep flickering and keep flickering and keep flickering. And eventually you'll have your light back that you feel like you lost. So like, let those flickers happen. Enjoy them. It's a part of your light coming back. And I don't know how it works, but somewhere along the way as you're healing, because we all know healing isn't linear, you get your spark back. You get your light back. And I don't know if I could say when or how exactly it happened, but over time it did. So allow yourself to have joy. Don't feel guilty for it. Do not feel guilty for finding joy in the hard moments. It's a part of healing. Start and try new things. So do step outside of your comfort zone. The things that you've always wanted to do, that you've dreamt about, that you've thought about, go and do them. Try them. Like, there's no better time than after a breakup to do those things. When I went through that breakup, and I had all this time on my hands, I was like, you know what? I'm finally going to do the thing that I wanted to do years ago, but I didn't do because I was so busy pouring into this relationship. I'm going to go and start an online boutique. And I went and I did it. And did it end up working out? No. Did I ended up changing my mind and it wasn't what I wanted to do long term? Yes. But I'm so thankful that I did it. It was so healing for me to do something and invest my time into something that I loved and that I was passionate about. And even though it didn't work out, it taught me a lot, and obviously it led me to this moment. So step outside of your comfort zone. Don't stay stuck in old habits or places that remind you of the past. Oh, this one's good. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's like sometimes when we're sad and we're going through heartbreak, we want to like live in the misery. We want to like really soak in it. It's like we love to like listen to the sad music and think about all the sad times. And even though I feel like that is part of healing, don't stay stuck in that. At some point, you have to decide that you don't want to be sad anymore. And you have to let go and step into the new thing, even if you're still grieving the existence of someone or the existence of a relationship that's gone. You can be grieving and also actively try to step into new, to let go. It's hard, but it's true. Yeah, and I think another part of that is just taking back your power. Do not let your ex control your emotions or dictate the way that you see yourself or your value. The worst thing you can do after a breakup is go and look at what your ex is doing and or analyze the way that they're dealing with the breakup and compare yourself to them. It's so easy to look at an ex who is not fazed by your relationship when you're going through the breakup and be like, oh my gosh, I'm over here crying, sad, hopeless, torn up, and they're out there and they're fine. They're not dealing with any of the emotions or the pain that I'm dealing with. Why? Is there something wrong with me? Did they never love me? And I've said this before and I'll say it again, you reap what you sow, and what comes around goes around. At some point, they will have to face and deal with whatever it is that they have to heal from in their relationship. They can choose to do it now or later. You may be choosing it now, not because you're choosing it, but just because it's just hitting you now. But it's going to hit them at some point. And yeah, maybe you cared more about the relationship than they did. Maybe you loved them more than they loved you. Maybe the breakup is going to be more painful for you. Maybe they don't care the way that you thought they did. That's not a reflection of you, or you not being good enough, or you not being worth it. That's oftentimes a reflection of them. And you don't want to be with someone like that anyways. Take that as a sign. Take it as whatever you want. Like, hallelujah. If they don't care, good. That's good, because that's just more confirmation that you shouldn't be with them. And that this breakup is the right thing. And if you're in the thick of it and you are broken and shattered and in pain, that's a representation of how deeply you love that person and how much love you have to give. And isn't that a beautiful thing? Isn't it a beautiful thing that you were genuine and that your intentions were genuine and that you really love that person, that you really gave everything? And if they didn't give everything, that's only going to haunt them in the future. But if you gave everything, and if you cared, and if you're actually dealing with extreme emotions from the breakup, good for you. You have a lot of love to give. And when you have that love, when you find the right person to give it to, man, you're going to have a good relationship. And you're going to find someone that matches that energy and that matches that amount of love for you. So it's like, good riddance to the person who doesn't care about the breakup. That's just more confirmation that they were not the one for you. And it doesn't mean that you're not valuable, and it doesn't mean that you're not worthy. I've said this before and I'll say it again, but if a package shows up at the wrong house and it returns to sender, it doesn't mean that the package isn't valuable. You're just not you're at the wrong place. You're not in the right place. And good riddance. If they don't care, great. That's not a reflection of you. It's just what it is. And hopefully they find what they're looking for. And if they don't, who cares anyways? It's like they're not going to be a part of your life. Like, it's over. And I know that may hurt right now, but it's like, it's actually the best thing. It's like, it's crazy. It's crazy how much when we go through breakups, we just like hope that the person misses us or hope that they feel like they missed out when we go through breakups. But it's like, who cares? You're free of them. You're free of a relationship with someone who doesn't actually want to choose you and doesn't actually value you. Praise the Lord. Good for you. Like, you don't want to be with someone like that anyways. It's like, good riddance. Like, that's good. You know, it's hard to see it in the moment because it feels so personal, but man, it's like, it's good. Yeah, just like, and that's part of, I feel like, taking back your power. Like, own your choices, own the bad decisions you made within the relationships or the way that you contributed to it failing, because inevitably we all do. Even if we worked harder to try to keep the relationship and we gave everything that we could, we've all failed. We've all done things wrong. Don't play the what if game. Own your choices. It happened. But the right relationship, even if you made a mistake here or there, wouldn't end. Like, the person that you're going to be with one day for life and the right partner for you, you're going to work through things. You don't have to obsess over all the things that you did wrong in the relationship. Like, just own it and recognize that a breakup is an opportunity for growth and change. And you're going to change so much who you are just as an individual. And also you're going to learn different ways that you want to be in relationships and ways that you want to be better. And learn what you actually want in a relationship and what you don't. My last and biggest do's are, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, please go to therapy. Please go to therapy. If you have the means, if you have the ability to go to therapy, go to therapy. Go to therapy, especially if you're coming out of a unhealthy and or toxic relationship. Go to therapy. Go to therapy. Yeah, that was like the 7th time I've said it. Go to therapy. Therapy. Go to therapy. It will help you so much. It will help you heal so much. And if you can't go to therapy, try to find good resources and things that can reaffirm your decision and or encourage you that you're going to get through the breakup and that maybe it was the best thing. You know, research all different things and research the 5 stages of grief. And if you feel like you were in an unhealthy or toxic relationship, research about that, research how to heal from that, research how to get out of that. You know, they say that it takes the average woman 7 times to break out of an abusive relationship. So research, information and knowledge is your best friend. And that's what's going to help you get your power back to stand firm in your new life that you are rebuilding outside of the relationship. And my other do is Jesus. God says that we are beautiful, that we are chosen, that we are loved. God loved us first before anyone else. And that was the biggest component in my healing, just in my overall life, but through my heartbreak too, is starting to see myself the way that God sees me and starting to take all my brokenheartedness to God. And he was able to start to build back my identity and my self-esteem because of how good he is. And part of my healing was God teaching me about forgiveness and God teaching me about how he wants us to guard our hearts and God teaching me about what I deserve and God teaching me about the kind of person I want to be and how to be Christ-like and all these different things. Jesus is so needed to heal a broken heart, to mend a broken heart. He understands you so complexly, every little detail of you, every trauma you've ever had, any painful thing you've experienced in your life, every way that you are, Jesus understands and he will meet you right where you are. Jesus met me in my heartbreak and he was there for me. And he didn't just take the pain away, he let me live through it. But man, did it teach me a lot and man, did it make me the person that I am today. And I'm so thankful for it. But he wants to walk through it with you. You just have to let him in and say, God, heal me, heal my heart, and teach me who you want me to be. Jesus. I wouldn't have gotten through anything that I've gone through in my life without him. Now, here's just some things I want to encourage you guys with and just some things I feel like to remember about breakups. Healing isn't linear. We know this, but guys, it's not. You may feel like you're healing one day and the next day you feel like you are losing your mind. And you feel crazy and you feel confused and you feel scared. That's okay. You may feel like you take 10 steps forward and you're getting over them and you're moving on, and then you take 10 steps back. You may make progress and then you may get triggered. There's so many parts of healing. It's so complex. Just allow yourself the space and the time and let yourself just be present in each and every moment as you heal, because each and every moment is all pivotal to the overall healing process. Grieve, but don't stay stuck. It's okay to feel sad and angry right now if you're going through a breakup and you're trying to rebuild your life and you feel like you're starting from scratch. It's okay to be angry. It's okay. It's okay to be confused. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to feel whatever emotion you're feeling. Let yourself feel the emotion. That is a huge part of the healing in my experience. Now, this one hits close to home. And yeah, I just want to encourage you that you are just not defined by this breakup. You are not defined by this divorce. You're not. Like, this doesn't make you less than. This isn't your whole story. This is just a chapter. And really, in the grand scheme of things, it's so insignificant to the rest of your life. It's just a part of your story. It feels like the end of the world right now, but it's not. It's not. You deserve happiness. Even if it doesn't feel like it right now, joy and peace and freedom and healing is coming for you. It's happening. And the most painful seasons produce the best fruit. Growth is so painful, but it produces so much joy and peace. And I just want to say too, like, you're not alone. Lean on your support system. Let people into your life. Let people in. When I went through many of my breakups, I tried to isolate myself because I felt like no one would understand. And no one needs to understand you fully when you're going through a breakup. It's so complex. But let people love on you. Let people get your mind off things. Let people just be around you. It doesn't mean that you have to even explain what you're going through, because it may feel like it's unexplainable, and it may almost feel like even explaining it to people makes you feel worse because they don't understand. But let people love you. I spent so much time pushing people away in that season, and I just wish I would have let people support me better, because you're not meant to do it alone. You're not meant to get through it alone. And you are getting stronger. With each and every step, you're becoming a better version of yourself. All of this pain is going to lead you to so much purpose, and I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but it is. And the last thing that I'll say is, if you are going through a breakup and you're struggling and you're feeling like you're losing something and you don't want to, or you're just grieving that and you're sad and you don't feel like you'll ever find someone that loves you again, or someone that you love again, you will. You'll be shocked to see how much better God has for you. Man's rejection is God's protection. And for whatever reason, it just wasn't right. It wasn't right, whatever it is, it wasn't right. And now you have an opportunity to let things into your life that are a better fit for you. And man, I've said it before and I'll say it again, but God has blessed me times a billion. Like, the person that David is in my life, my partner, he is just the sweetest, funniest. Like, I couldn't have written up him on paper. He's just perfect for me. Imperfectly perfect. I love him so much. Our relationship isn't perfect. He's failed me and I failed him, and it's complicated at times, but I love that man, and he really does love me, and he chooses me, and I love him, and I just can't imagine my life without him. So good is in store for you, I promise. And with all that being said, just try to trust God's timing and trust his plan. I know it's hard, but in time, may not feel like it right now, but you'll be able to look back on all this and be thankful for it, because it's going to lead you to where you're supposed to be and lead you to who you're supposed to be with. So it's just going to lead you to a better choice for you, better life for you. And that's a beautiful thing. In most cases, every situation is unique, but I love you guys so much. I'm just going to close this episode out with a prayer. Not a Christian podcast, but sometimes I just feel led to do things, and I love Jesus. He's my Lord, so I will always honor his request. So I'm going to pray with you guys. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I just pray over anyone listening to this episode who is struggling to rebuild their life after heartbreak, after loss, and who is looking for peace and for joy and for healing. And God, I just pray that you move mountains for these people that are in pain. And I just pray that you show them that, God, you have a plan for their life. And even more than that, God, like, you weep when we weep. Jesus wept, my favorite verse in the Bible. I love the verse too, where you say that you hold all of our teardrops in a bottle. You see everything. You see every tear. You see every panic attack. You see all the pain that they're going through. And you love them. And you have so much healing in store for them. So I pray that right now, in Jesus' name, you just come over them with peace. We love you, Lord, and we say this in your name. Amen. I love you guys. I will talk to you guys next week. My lips are so freaking chapped. But yeah, if you guys want to support me, you guys know the drill. You can leave this podcast a rating and review. That really helps me. Share it with a friend. Share it on your story. All the things. Follow me. I have a YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, everything. So I'll close this out by asking, what elephants are in your room? My name is Nicole, and I will talk to you guys next week.